Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. It's Ed Mathews with the Real Estate Underground. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today is a cool episode. We're going to be talking about, yes, we're going to talk about real estate, but we're also going to talk about leadership and a whole bunch of other things. And I can't wait for this conversation. I'm joined today by Dani Hampton of the Dani Hampton Group, based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, if I'm not mistaken, Roanoke, Texas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ed, for having me.
My pleasure. So we were just talking offline about how we both have two girls each and different stages in life, but I can't imagine not being a father of daughters. People asked me a long time ago, do you ever want a son? And I'm like, nope, I'm good. This is perfect.
Right? I have plenty of nephews in my life.
My two are number 8 and 9 of 9 grandkids and a whole bunch of boys that I can go hang out with. So that's fine.
There you go.
Welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing great.
Good. So for those folks that haven't discovered your Instagram yet, I want you to tell us a little bit about who you are and your company, and we'll get into it.
All right. Well, I am an open book. A lot of people will notice that from my social media channels. I love to be transparent. I love people to see the good, bad, and ugly of what life looks like. And I know a lot of people see social media as the highlight reels, right? So I feel like, fortunately for me, I've built my real estate business almost completely on social media. I started when I was 22 years old. I am married to the man I met when I was 15 years old. And we've been now married for 15 years. I don't think I'm old enough to say that, but I now am in that new era of our marriage. We do have 2 girls, 5 and 9 years old, and we are always failing forward in life of work-life balance, right? Is there such a thing? I'm not sure. I think we're all still trying to figure it out.
Right.
And I run a real estate team. I actually started on real estate teams in my first 5 years in real estate. I've just had my 11th anniversary. So the last 6 years, I have been constantly working on how I can make a real estate team succeed.
Right. So congratulations on that. And congratulations on your relationship. It was funny when you were telling that story about you and your husband. I flashed back to my own experience. So I met my wife when we were 18. So we've been together 36 years and I'm nowhere near old enough to be in a relationship that long. But nevertheless, here we are, right? In terms of one of the things that you said that really resonated with me is failing forward, right? And that comes from 2 really important places. One is leadership, right? And the aspects of being a leader. But the other part of it is high emotional intelligence, right? Because when you're fine with people making mistakes, turns out we're all human, right? When you're fine with people making mistakes and my younger daughter plays softball and her coach always says, don't worry about the errors, just learn from it, right? And that's it. And it's something that we try to do here at Clark Street. Sounds like it's what you try to do within your own company. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your philosophy on that?
Yeah. So I think that depending on if you're looking for it or if it finds you, right? Leadership. And I feel like in a way it found me. I don't know if I necessarily went into it thinking that I wanted to be some head honcho of a company. I think that I naturally just put group at the end of my name, just thinking I would have one assistant and that would be the extent of my business. I'm like, we are 2 people. We are now group. And so I feel as if, depending on anybody's real estate experience, is I felt very confident as a real estate agent. So as much as I felt qualified to start having people come work with me, honestly, having myself build a real estate team, and this is what I think you're going to laugh at because we already talked about our families, I think it's making me a better parent and it's making me a better spouse because we're all working with different humans day in and day out. And then especially when you start to employ or get an agreement with other independent contractors, I feel like we're at this mercy of we need to like each other to want to work with each other and to be having a similar mission and vision and values. And that in that's probably what I would say summarizes it for me, because I don't know if I started a team and my failing forward experience has been all around me figuring out my mission and my vision and my values.
Right. It's interesting. And so now that you have built a team, right, and it's a full blown company, how have you created that culture?
Yes. And honestly, that is probably the part that I've honestly pivoted in the last 6 weeks. And like, I think that's the part where I'm like, I've been building my culture. Honestly, I've been building my culture on something that I felt like I didn't know exactly what I was in, right? The vision, right? I didn't know what my vision of the culture was, because sometimes you either are influenced by either a past experience, and I didn't necessarily care for the cultures that I was a part of before. I could pick apart, and obviously I left those teams. So I'm like, I could pick apart all the things that I don't feel went right. But in those moments, I'm like, I got into real estate when I was 22. So I honestly didn't have a professional kind of corporate experience of working for another company.
Sure.
So I'm working from like ground zero on culture. The last 3 years since the whole 2020, 2021 movement, my culture has probably changed 3 or 4 times. And a lot around the culture of accountability.
Yeah.
And the culture of caring. And that's honestly what I'm putting more efforts into. I've probably put too much focus into the accountability and the standards culture that I felt like there was some people that I think didn't realize that at the end of the day, we are human and we do actually care about our people. And so now we're starting to get to a point of going, how can we make sure that we still have a culture where we're like, we care about you, and that's why we hold you accountable.
Yeah, right. And I think that last sentence is really important, right? So I used to work for this guy. He's a mentor of mine. His name's Rob Bernstein. And he once told me, he said, our payroll is an investment in human beings, right? And so there has to be a return on that investment. And that's the accountability part, where for every dollar they invest in, I was in sales working for him, and for every dollar he invests in the sales team, he needs back a multiple of that in order to effectively run the business. And if it was a very important lesson for me to learn, and I was mid-career at that point, I didn't really think about it in terms of that. I was actually advocating for a guy who happened to be struggling, and Rob was pushing me to hold him accountable. And I, in that conversation, learned my job is not to coddle someone who's struggling. My job is to first look in and say, okay, what could I do from a training perspective, from a mentoring perspective, from a management perspective, from an accountability perspective, what can I do to help this person? And then it becomes binary. If I've done all those things and they're still struggling, then maybe we let them off the hook and encourage them to go find someplace else to work. Right. And that's okay. And
that's been my experience for the last 6 months, really.
But it doesn't mean that person isn't valued. Right. It's just that they're in the wrong spot, and that's okay. And I find that when you hold somebody accountable, like you're talking about, and it either works out or it doesn't, in almost every case, they're relieved, right? Because it's okay. Now we're real, and let's have a conversation about that. And what do I need to do to perform well? Okay, we'll give you those tools. We'll give you that capability. You got to bring something to the table as well. And it either works out or it doesn't mean that person is any less. It's just not a good fit, and that's okay.
And that's on it. So for that, I think that what I've gotten better at recently has been really trying to understand each other's expectations of,
right.
Our expectations of each other. Right. So I feel like the more I can prepare them for that culture, to prepare them that the reason why we hold you accountable is because we care. It is because in most cases, this is not a volunteer job. And that this is a job that we all are expecting some kind of money to come in. And as much as that they need money to bring in to be able to support their lifestyles, we have to have money coming in to support the business.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of that piece, because even for us as a real estate team, we had to get away from the fact that they were thinking in sales, if a money of that part of their money is going towards the company, that's not my pocket. It's not the it's
Right.
it's as much as I would love for it to be my pocket, it's going to the company. And this is why we have all the things that we have and the tools that we have, so I can support other agents and help them get their time back.
Right.
Because
Let's keep
I think we're all trying to find more time.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A motivated seller just filled out your web form. If you call back within 5 minutes, you're nearly 4 times more likely to get that seller appointment. But delay your follow-up by even just 10 minutes? Forget it. You're toast. Ella Vista Connect calls that lead back in 60 seconds, qualifies them, and schedules your meeting. Find out how much slow follow-up is costing you. Free calculator at ellavista.com/underground.
Yeah, the thing is that entrepreneurship it's an interesting play because yes, there is a point where it becomes lucrative, but that in between point, that growth spurt means that you as the owner, as the entrepreneur themselves are deferring a lot of gratification, and that can be money, prestige, whatever, so the business can get to that point. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's something that you're really smart about, obviously. And it's a place where a lot of leaders, a lot of entrepreneurs struggle, is that delayed gratification, right? They start seeing money come in and they're like, ooh, I would that shiny car or that beach house, or I'd like to upgrade whatever. And you forget that money is oxygen for your business, right?
Absolutely. And for even just being comfortable with speaking about failures, is something that I have had over the last 4 years has been 2 cars. I've always had 2 cars. I have a Jeep Wrangler that I actually branded to my business, and it's my car, it's my marketing piece, but it's not a car that I usually like to drive as a daily driver, especially on highways, right, when it's windy.
Noisy. Yeah.
So I've always had a family car of some sort. And we made a decision at the end of this last year, as we invested a lot in the business, just to be able to work on our branding and our marketing and to just build the vision that I've created. I had to sell one of my cars. I am now in Jeep Wrangler full time.
All right. Those are hard decisions, right? And does that make it more convenient for you personally, right? I just have visions of a 5-year-old climbing into a Jeep, right? And that's not easy for her, right? But that's what mom and dad are for. We'll give it a little scooch and get her up into the back seat. But the fact is, it was right. It was the right decision for your business. And
Yep.
That is so important to remember, because so if you're out there listening and you just got a big honking check for a wholesale deal you just did, or a flip you just did, or a multifamily you just sold off, congratulations. But first, reserve a whole bunch of money for taxes. And second, reserve a whole bunch more for growing your business, right?
Yeah, I think that something that was preached to me very early in business and over time has been just really building out that 5-year plan and making sure that you are keeping your eye on that 5-year plan. And obviously, yes, you can pivot, you can make changes, but I think that I felt like we were nervous about that 5-year plan. So we always only built out for a year. And as you shared, yes, you have great months. And when I felt very confident in real estate, I was like, wow, I'm able to be this person who has 2 cars. I thought that was like making it. And I was like, the fact that I have a quote, quote, fun car, but to the point of, you know what, in that moment, I was like, this is a first world problem for me to sell my car, and I'm not having any more kids. My 2 kids are small enough right now that they can hang out in the backseat of that car.
Yeah. And the cool part is you and your husband can still play man-to-man defense on the kids. Once you have the third, you got to go zone, and the oldest one figures out they have you outnumbered at some point. And then your life gets
Exactly. Well, there we go.
But it's such an important thing, right? Because revenue is not income, right?
Yep.
And not most, that's not fair. Many entrepreneurs forget that. And so they see money walk in the door and they're like, I'm rich. You're really not, right? Not yet. You're getting there. You're doing all right. But you got to push that ball down the field, maybe sell a car, maybe not buy new computers, maybe not upgrade your offices, maybe just tap the brakes a little bit so that you can use that money, A, for a reserve, right? And B, as fuel to grow your business.
Absolutely. And I think honestly, having that mindset of that played into my leadership, that played into just everything where I was like, I truly have to put on the business owner hat. And I think, right, because of the way we are paid commissions, or as if anyone was to flip or wholesale, that kind of money that comes in, right, gets easily mistaken as income. And unfortunately, there's a lot of this that, depending on how the market moves, we need reserves.
Right. All right. I'm always interested in the mistakes that folks made. And before we started recording, we were talking about some of the things that you and I have done that we'd probably like to have back over the years, right? So I'm curious, you've also invested in real estate, and you're obviously running a very successful brokerage right now. So what are some of those things that you'd like to have back?
I just feel like I wish that I took more time to possibly read and understand what I was going to walk into for investing. And gosh, it's so much. If you have to go through the problem and then you start reading about it, and then you're like, oh, that's how I would have fixed the problem.
Yeah, right.
But I just made the mistake first. I don't know why we do that, but I know that for me, I was taught, I heard it in a conference that it was like, okay, make sure that if you see an opportunity, especially if someone has a real estate license, do you have an opportunity to help somebody? And fortunately enough, in 2020, I had multiple opportunities come across that I was able to help someone who was scared about the market, who didn't know what to do. And I had the ability to purchase their home and let them stay in their home for some time. And in the moment, it felt great. But I think that when you only prepare so much, there's going to be mistakes that get made. And we did not prepare to be landlords. So we did not prepare to be landlords and understanding the ideal tenants that would be in our properties and how long we even plan to keep the properties. So there was definitely a lack of planning that happened.
And when you get sucked into that situation, you start herding cats real fast, right? There are so many moving parts that if you're not
Absolutely
systems. But here's the thing, and I hear you on the lack of planning thing, but I firmly believe, first off, it's okay to make mistakes. Of course you're going to make mistakes. I know of no one walking the earth that's perfect, right? But the other part of it is that you also need to be thinking about, part of being an entrepreneur is feeling like you're building the plane as you're rolling down the runway, right? And it's the exciting part, it's the scary part, but it's also, that's normal. And the third thing I'll tell you is that at least for me, I learned by doing, right? It's great to read books, and I do, and it's great to listen to podcasts, and I do, and listen to Audible books and all that, and I do. But that's theory, and it's folks who have very kindly baked 5-10 years of their lives into 200 pages so that I can learn from them. But man, I'll tell you, the best lessons I ever learned were the 97,000 mistakes that I made. And fortunately, I was able to fix about 30% of them, and we were okay. Right.
Absolutely.
Right? That's okay.
Yep. And we took an opportunity. So I think it's just the way we look at it. Right. And I feel in the moment, I feel like what happened in 2020, even as much as I could say that there was a lack of planning and preparing and knowing who would be the ideal tenants for us, there was a couple of things I was proud of. Obviously, I think I had an ego move. I had an ego move of being 30 years old, and I owned 3 rental properties. So I was like, all right, I felt like that was a nice little thing to, yeah, exactly. But I'm putting that on a resume. I don't even know if I have a resume, but I'm going to put it out there. But the next thing is that what happened in 2020 saved us in 2024.
How so?
Over the last 2 years, we have invested so much into this business just to build the vision, to get the right lead sources, to get the right technology, to put us in a better environment. Just a lot of money ended up having to get invested into the business. And then the other side of that is, just like you were sharing as far as the reading books and spending a lot of time doing that, I decided I know I learn best in that in-person environment. So when I kept hearing the surround yourself with the 5 people that you want to be like,
Right.
and I was like, all right, I'm getting on airplanes and I'm going to meet some people. And so this last 2 years has been all of that. And with that being said, it definitely had us put a lot of money on credit cards. And there was at some point where the revenue, right, was not matching the debt. And so we were able to make a decision that one of our rental properties, we found ourselves getting to a point where we were able to end a lease. And we were like, okay, I think that this is the best property to sell in that moment. And we were able to pay a lot of our debt off. And I'm like, as much as I feel like in some investor worlds, I've heard from some many mentors that could have been suicide because I had a low interest rate on this. But in the moment, I was like, it gave us peace back in our life that we weren't underneath this mountain of debt.
Yeah. So somewhere out in podcast world, there's been a whole bunch of people who just went, right? But it's okay. That's what the assets are for, right? Is you at some point are going to sell them, whether it's you or your kids or whatever. And as long as you have a plan for that money, right? It's okay to sell assets. If you're selling an asset to pay off some bad debt, cool. If you're selling an asset to get out from under credit card debt or to add capital to a business that really could use a little infusion, that's fine. What you don't want to do is sell an asset that's producing cash flow and put it in your pocket and go buy a beach house. Don't do that. That's stupid, right? But if you're taking asset producing cash flow and you're just converting it into other cash flow producing things, whether it's growing the business, it's avoiding bad debt, whatever, there's nothing wrong with it, right? You got to do what you got to do to get through the times where the collar gets a little tight.
Absolutely. And I feel like if anything, let's say I was to delay the purchases that I made in 2020 because I felt like I had a lack of preparation, right? Just like you said about doing, I feel like, thank God I went and bought those properties because I had the ability to leverage. I had the ability to take my assets and know that I did make a good investment because I had positive income from that. The fact that I was able to do that and give us some relief, but also know that we have a plan now for where everything is going, that we're like, all right, this wasn't like me just doing it for a selfish move.
Right. And that's the key. All right. So we've touched on a couple of things. So I think what we're going to do is start to land this plane and we're going to move on to the final 4. All right.
Okay.
Buckle up.
Okay.
All right. So first one is, I want you to finish this sentence for us. My purpose is
bringing the light out of people. So I want to be able to attract people to their inner light and to just see themselves as their best selves.
Love that. All right. So I'm also curious about, you had mentioned, and this is one of the things that got me on this track, surrounding yourself with the 5 people that are going to be most impactful to your business. Your network is your net worth, right? So what is the best advice you ever got from a mentor or coach, and who gave it to you?
So my mentor, his name is Dustin Wright. He ran our brokerage I was a part of for several years. And the best advice was simply, he's the one who had always shared with me understanding my 5-year plan and to always know my mission and vision and values, because that is your filtration system, right? That is your filtration system for the people in your life. And that could be your personal, because you can have your personal mission and vision. Yep. And then your business. And I think I ignored him for several years, and he already knows. I call him this year and I'm like, okay, I think I finally learned my lesson.
All right. You were right. Yeah. How about that? A wise man. All right. Obviously, you are constantly growing the business and looking to sharpen the saw and get better at your job. I'm curious, leaders almost universally tend to be readers, but readers these days means a lot of different things, right? It can be a physical book. It can be audio books, but it can also be going to conferences and watching webinars and listening to podcasts and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm curious about how you take in information, how you learn. And I'm also really curious about who you pay attention to, creators wise or author wise.
Absolutely. So I was just confessing on my Instagram that I am a podcast junkie. So most would listen to music and I listen to podcasts. And depending on my mood, I'll either I have a bunch of saved podcasts where anything from motivational to business to faith. And as far as my content, I would keep it to podcasts, and I do Audible books because I am in the car a lot.
Right.
Or I'm always multitasking. To put me with a book in my hands has always been very difficult. And I will tell you guys, if I can share, I think this is a very interesting nugget to throw out there because I don't feel like many would find it. Something that has really changed the structure of my business has been really getting better at my emotional intelligence. So anything related to emotional intelligence has been where I have been grabbing content from. And one of those things was the Working Genius. So I'm not sure if you've heard of the Working Genius, Ed. Oh, it's not even new, but it is a different personality assessment. But the book that is surrounding it, the coaching programs that are around it, I haven't taken their coaching, so I can't justify that piece. But the book and the podcast itself, it's very interesting to see yourself in a point where you know what your strengths are. And we all have taken these personality assessments, but the way they framed the strengths. So for mine, just to give a tip, is my strengths are invention, which makes a lot of sense. I always like to start from nothing. And galvanizing, which I'm almost certain I Googled what galvanizing was when I got that word because I've never used it. So that was great, invention and galvanizing. But I did learn what my frustration was. And now we're like, okay, this is why I struggle in this place in my business, which was discernment. And discernment is my frustration. It's not where I should spend a lot of time. And
so tell me about galvanizing and discernment. What does that mean?
Galvanizing and discernment. So galvanizing is more of rallying the troops. I can get people to buy in. If I need someone influence and I need to influence a group to do something, I am great at galvanizing. So yeah, the discernment for me, I do feel like I am able to make gut decisions and I can get that gut feeling. But if it's around certain topics that maybe I don't feel super confident in, I'd probably spend too much time trying to figure it out. And I might actually make a mistake by being impulsive just to get away from it. Right. Like an impulsive decision versus just being more of I'm actually going to feel my gut on this.
Right. Gotcha. Interesting. Working Genius. All right. I got a new one. I'm excited because whenever I get something new, I'm going to pounce on that tonight.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Cool. The last question I have for you is I want you to finish this sentence. Success means, what does it mean to you?
Success means, I think, positive influence.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Dani, when you're talking about real estate or leading your company or helping people accomplish their own goals, what do you like to do for fun?
What do I like to do for fun? Well, I am on a mission to put myself on a beach as often as possible. And I would love to tell you guys that I'm like a surfer or something really cool. I really am just someone who wants to just relax in a beach setting. I honestly have so much fun just creating things. Recently, I've been drawing pictures and my girls like the color and I'm tired of buying coloring books. So I'm now just drawing pictures and having them color my drawings. So yeah, I love to be creative anywhere I can be.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Dani, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot and I'm excited about Working Genius. I can't wait to dig into that. So how can people get in touch with you or learn more about you?
Yeah, so I am easiest to reach on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is at the Dani Hampton. No dots, no underscores, no nothing, just the Dani Hampton. And yeah, you'll see my stories, you'll see my reels, you'll see my posts, and I post everything between life and business and work and everything in between.
Well, Dani Hampton, thank you so much for joining us today. I am on your Instagram. I am a follower, and you have an amazing business and a beautiful family. So congratulations on both fronts, and thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed.
This has been The Real Estate Underground. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, Undergrounders, remember your real estate journey begins with a simple step forward. Now get to it. Bye for now.